Hello, everyone. My name is Alejandro from the experts team in XTM, and welcome to today's webinar on project management scenarios in XTM. I'll introduce the topics and agenda now, but first, I wanted to mention a couple of ground rules. All attendees are muted, but you're able to enter questions in the question box in the GoToWebinar interface. So feel free to enter them there. We'll go through the webinar, and we'll have time for QA after the presentation is done. We're aiming to wrap up this presentation around 25-30 minutes so we can leave time for QA. Just before we start, I wanted to let you know that we needed to exclude a little part of the topics because of time constraints. This is a part dedicated to linguist and vendor assignation and workflow management, but we'll probably do a part two, so stay tuned, and yeah, probably we'll look into doing it in a second edition. All right, so the topic of this webinar is project management scenarios. Some of you might be familiar with the product, but for those of you who are not, XTM is an enterprise level end-to-end cloud TMS, so translation management system solution, which effectively allows all users working on localization to operate and efficiently collaborate within the same tool, from project management to translation work, and enabled by powerful automation and integration capabilities. So as a translation management system, we can think of it based in two pillars. Firstly, we have a project management or task management layer, where the content that lives in different sections in your company is turned into an order or request, or in XTM terms, project, which has its own volume and scope, which will be assigned to a series of resources, which are linguistic, but not only linguistic resources, who will perform tasks within a time frame and a cost factor associated to it. So basically a project. And then the other pillar of XTM is a CAD tool environment, where the linguistic resources will be able to access the content you need to be translated and do their work, be it translations, editions, or reviews, in an interface powered by technologies like translation memories, terminology databases, machine translation, automated QA checks, and others. For the scope of this webinar, though, we'll be focusing on the project management layer. So I'm going to introduce the topics now. We have, so for today's topics, my general idea was to show how differently companies set up a localization as a function, and how this demands different ways of managing projects in your TMS, and how XTM can help you manage these different scenarios easily. So depending on how localization is set up from an organizational point of view, your internal customers' needs, and how much awareness localization there is in your end-to-end process, your requirements will vary. And with this, the way your projects are requested and will managed and delivered to your internal customers. We'll look at XTM's graphic user interface, where most of the PM role action happens, and how you can create translation projects and organize content coming from different directions, have your projects created with the right settings and resources, and also how you can skip recurrent steps to focus on the important stuff. But I also wanted to say content can also be submitted into XTM from outside of the main graphic UI, so without having to log into the TMS. XTM's offer includes connectors, which come as plugins installed in the content management system where your content is authored or published. The portal, which is a website through which you can request projects into XTM, accessible by anyone in your company with a simplified request form. And so they will submit content and leave the PM to take care of it. And then also, without logging into the graphic UI, you have access to the REST API. And you can submit and retrieve content, but also perform different actions for project management. So we'll be looking at that too. Okay, so for the next slide, I wanted to talk a little bit about how companies, what are the different scenarios in which companies would organize their localization function, and the layout in general. So you might, this might resonate or not with you. I'm dividing it in 4 options here. I'm offering 4 scenarios that that I've seen often in how localization is organized within a company. It doesn't mean that there's 4 models. Companies will handle it differently. There's probably overlap, but you might get a mix of any of this. So centralized localization group, where content owners would only provide the source content to be translated. They have a deadline and a budget. They send the source files and receive the target, and that's it. In this case, it's a PM-centric. The PM owns the process or the processes, manages the resources, and operates overall the TMS. And our log PMs here would manage requests coming from several internal customers. Another scenario is a dedicated log PM per department. So each content owner has their own process and requirements to their department, to their content type. They probably work with a specific vendor, which might not be shared with other departments. And there might or might not be a real connection with other content silos. And these log PMs might work independently from each other and not share a team with other localization PMs from other departments. Then we have high-paced content owners who are publishing content almost every day. So they are asking, they're sending translation requests every day. Their requests are often small, close to what we will call continuous localization. They don't have capacity to project manage their requests or operate the platform, so they're not operating the TMS. They have, however, fixed scope and consistent input. So there's high traffic, but overall low maintenance because they have low variation in the way that they send their requests. And they could be working out of commercial CMS or working off a proprietary system that was developed by your company. And then as number 4, we have the usual wildcard, occasional requesters or requests coming from infrequent departments with no clear scope. So what I wanted to mention here is, so probably none of these describe exactly your case, and there could be overlap and also change in the companies and how your company sees localization. XTM, however, will allow you for flexibility, and all of the cases that you can see here can be addressed through different features in complementary modules. Like we said, operating XTM directly in the graphic UI or via connectors or through the API, where you can develop an application and plug in tailored to your needs. So I'm going to jump into a little demo now, but for the first 2 cases, what I will do is I'll go ahead and log into XTM as a project manager, and we'll look at how the content is organized in different customers. So content coming from different internal requesters will be organized in what we call customers in XTM, how a project is created, and a few features that will make project managing easier. Then for the last 2, the last 2 scenarios, I will jump into creating projects from outside of XTM, so into XTM, but not logged into XTM. Creating a project from one of our connectors. In this case, I will use the WordPress connector, so logged logged into WordPress, I will submit content for localization into XTM, and also from the portal. And well, yeah, all these actions being done outside of the platform. And lastly, I'll mention a few points on API integrations and some use cases that might resonate with you. Okay, so I'm switching now to XTM. As you can see, this is the login screen. I'll log in as a project manager to XTM. There's a few announcements. What you will see most of the time as soon as you log in as a PM is the project list. So a lot of your time will be spent in this dashboard, which is listing the projects that are either that were created in XTM and are either in progress or finished or archived. There's different status. You have several columns that will show you metadata associated with it. So your projects will be listed here. You have a few options. You have an advanced search through which you can filter your content in the projects that were created. You can establish different parameters and narrow down your search this way. And you can also save this advanced search settings as a project filter. So in this case, for instance, I have a project filter saved here, and I can select projects created today, and I'll shortlist to those projects that were created today. Wanted to maybe make a quick mention to the customer. So we've been talking about customers for some time now, and you can see that there's a column here called customer. We have the projects created inside customer. So every time you create a project, you create it inside a customer. A customer is kind of a repository of projects and the way that you will organize the content coming from your business partners, from your internal customers. So now I'll go to customers here in XTM. You can see there's a few of them in my list. I have named them Global Support Center, Portal Customer, Technical Documentation, and a few others. Like you see, Portal Customer will be projects coming from Portal, and WordPress is content coming from WordPress. But I also have these other two where I'm not connecting to any CMS in particular or means of creating content from outside of XTM. So I'll go to technical documentation. Let's suppose this is an internal department that's requesting content often to be translated. So technical documentation here is the repository for this content where I'll be creating projects inside, and also it will host the TM and the glossary for this kind of content. You can see among many settings, we can narrow down, for instance, the amount of languages that a customer is using. So probably not all of the contents coming from different parts of the company would have the same language combinations. So you can choose to customize that here. I can have, for instance, only 2 source languages. For English USA, I have this list of targets. And for French, I only have Spanish. And there's also many other settings that you would set as default so that when you create a project, they will be created with these options chosen by default. XTM works in a way that settings are inherited from a global setting into customers, and then when you create a project, the project will inherit the properties from the customer. So it works in a hierarchical level in that way. There's many settings here. to default for project creation. I'm not going to go into each one of them, but it is what you can set up. So when you create a project, you have this option chosen by default. So as you can see, I have 5 customers here, but there are more customers actually in this account. I see a limited list of them because, and this again will resonate with the second scenario here with the dedicated log PM per department. I can as a PM have limited access, have my access limited to a few customers. So if I go to my user here, as a project manager, I can manage users, and I can see that I would have access to only these 5 customers, which is the ones that we were seeing, although there are a lot more here. So in this way, you can have your PMs working in different sections and have limited access to customers, so they can focus on their area. This also applies to linguists and vendors or LSPs. So if one of the content types, let's say if technical documentations is working with their exclusive list of linguists and vendors, you can, in the same way that we're doing here with the PMs, you can limit their access, and so someone out of Global Support Center will not be able to assign projects to the linguists who belong to technical documentation. So that's the way that you can organize your content coming from internal content owners, and the way that you can limit. And we will see soon that this limitation is not set in stone. You're enabling the possibility of limiting, but you're not completely isolating. You have the option to isolate, but you also have the option to have cross leverage between your customers. So I'll go now to project creation. Again, I'm back to the list here. To the top right, I have the button to add a project. I will go ahead and choose technical documentation, which is the customer that we were looking at a few seconds ago. And I will write my project name. So this is webinar June the 9th by Ale. I'm choosing a delivery due date. There's many fields here. I will not go through each one of them and explain the whole project creation form. I'll go through the only the requested, the mandatory fields, but you can see there's custom fields, so additional information we can we can add. I'm choosing my source language and my target languages here, and I will choose a file for translation. So we'll choose this Word document. I'm picking a workflow, which is only a translate step. In this case, it's a very simple workflow. I actually will add a description in this in the project. So we'll see soon what I'm trying to say here. And then back to the settings. Here we have the translation memory settings. So you can see by default I'm writing and reading and writing from the technical documentation TM, but I can also choose other TMs. So I can choose to have Global Support Centers translations leverage from their TM. I will not write into their TM, but I will read from them. So as you can see, you're not isolating your internal customers with when you create them as customers, but you are enabling the option to isolate them. All the time you can leverage from their content, and you can also in XTM establish rules where a translation coming from here would be penalized and deprioritized for your translator. I'll disable here the machine translation options for this project. And scrolling down to the bottom, we have the create button, and we also have the save as template. When we're saving as a template, we are allowing project creation to be easier next time. So I'm going to save this as a template. So webinar June the 9th. I will make it available only for this customer, so for technical documentation, and we'll hit save. And the way this works is next time I'm creating a project, and if it's a project with very similar characteristics, I'll be able to choose that template from this list. Right now, it didn't populate because I just added it. The next time I'll choose technical documentation, the template that I just named will appear here, and all the values that I set in here, like the source language and all the other options, will be pre-selected. So that will make your work pretty easy in terms of skipping steps. So the project was created. We can see it here. I'm not going to dive into the project a lot, but where I will go to is to templates. You can see webinar June the 9th is here, and we have in the project details all the settings that we set previously, and also we have our workflow. So we chose translate one, and we can pre-select the linguists that will be assigned to this workflow every time we choose this template. The main idea behind template is, sorry, and I also wanted to mention, we can also mark this checkbox. So as soon as we create a project, if there's people assigned, the project will start automatically, and the assignees will be able to take on the tasks. The main idea around templates is, so we defined in customers, customer is where we create our projects, and so templates is how we create our projects. A definition for all the properties and instructions to the system that a project needs to meet. So that is, in short, in a really summarized way, the project management done inside of the XTM user interface. So we just created this project here. You can see it has a word count, and we'll be able to assign people to it. And I'll filter this. So for the ones created today, what I'll do now is I will close XTM, and I will jump to WordPress, where I'll be submitting a project into XTM, but from outside of XTM. So this is the WordPress user interface. The XTM plugin for WordPress works on top of WPML. So we're gathering the content to be translated from WPML and sending it to XTM. So in this case, I have this page here, which I would like, as a content manager, I would like to submit this time, not as a project manager, but I'm a content manager. I want to submit this into XTM. So what I will do is I'll pick it here and add a translation for Spanish. I'll go to the translation basket. These are the steps that I need to follow to be able to send it to XTM. So it's a few clicks, and the content is sent to the XTM plugin. And now from the XTM plugin, I will send it to the XTM user interface. So I'll pick this one here, and I will use a template. So I'm telling the WordPress to create it in the WordPress customer, like we saw before, and I'm also adding instructions here. So how to create this this project. If I checked the automatically start and I added assignees and I choose my that workflow in here, I'll be able to, with just clicking this button, I'll be able to send the project for translation in XTM. And not only that, not only the project is created, but also translators are already receiving an email notification saying that they can work on them. To prove that, I'll log into XTM here, apply my filter, and I can see that a project was created for Spanish coming from WordPress, and it was created, yeah, just some minutes ago. So that is one way out of connectors we can send the content into XTM, and the other way is the portal. The portal is a website that is accessible for anyone in your company. They will need to only log in, and they'll be ready to do a translation request. You can enable single sign-on here to control who is requesting, but in case you don't want people logging into XTM, they can send requests from here. So in this case, I will go to the translation request, add a file to be translated. Again, I will choose a template, so I will tell it how I want this to be translated. Click on next, and then I should have my source language and target language. Pick a due date, and with a simplified form, I'm able to submit the content into translation from here. So your content requesters don't need to log into XTM, but your project managers can pick this project. So I'll refresh this view. Your project managers will be able to pick this project. Yeah, here we see it. Oh no, sorry. Okay, it looks like it didn't reach yet, but your PMs will be able to pick on that project and push it for kick it off for translation. Lastly, we have those. So we have all those two other interfaces where you don't necessarily need to be logged into XTM to create your projects. You can also take full advantage of the REST API and use it to connect proprietary content management systems for continuous localization. We have clients who are sending scheduled content, so and they're sending it to raw machine translation directly. So the content goes out and in pretty much without anyone managing it. But you can also use the API for business intelligence to get information on volume, financial data, and quality. And you can do more complex workflows where, for instance, you need to pull your content to send it to staging environment for someone to do an in-context review. That is something that you can do with API calls, and you can control project activity based on external events. So maybe you can modify due dates, or finish a project automatically based on events that happen outside of XTM and that XTM has no way of of knowing. So that is basically the topics I wanted to cover today.